Some of the things that were said to me just cut so deep. You are sick. I was not thinking properly. I was not trusting anybody. And the things that were going on behind the scenes were so incredibly damaging. Like I had pneumonia for like a month and a half. Okay, I'm gonna try my best not to bump this a whole lot, which is gonna be hard because I tend to ramble. Hi, welcome back to whatever comes out of my mouth is what you're gonna get. Hi, it has been a year since I posted the first part of my story, and I thought it was August 7th, but it wasn't, it was the 4th. So last night when I was looking at that whole thing, I knew I wanted to do a video that's just like a year later, because a lot has happened. But anyway, last night I saw that it was not in fact August 7th, it was August 4th. So then I kind of just, didn't know if I wanted to script it or not, or if I just wanted to talk freely, because I know that things will get twisted and used against me. But you know what? All I can do is speak from the heart. So that's what I'm going to do. Welcome back. It's been a year since the chaos, but I have a lot to say about it because things are still happening to this day, but we're not going to get into that yet. So a year ago today, delirious and recovering from COVID, watching Simone Biles kill it at the Olympics, I decided to finally tell my story of complex trauma and how it originated at my dance studio. And so I don't really know where to go from this. I don't want it to be super long. I don't want to ramble, but basically what I am going to say is some good came out of it, some bad came out of it, and I just kind of ended up figuring a lot of stuff out about myself in it and learning a lot of things. So I'm just going to get into that. Okay. So the good that came, a lot of people reached out. A lot of people felt really heard. They were given the language that we needed to explain what happened. This kind of maltreatment, when it goes on for as long as it has and continues to go on, people like my coach get away with this because we don't know how to spot it. And like I said in the videos, working with people who left a high demand religious group and encountered the same kind of abuse, but like different context, really opened my eyes, and then that propelled me into psych. But the good thing that came out of it is people felt heard. Even people who hadn't gone to the studio, people who had not even been dancers reached out, and they felt really seen. And I was like, okay, so this is a larger problem within like youth sports culture. So I was glad that people finally had the language, because it was having the language for me that allowed me to get help and to find a very trauma-informed therapist. The other thing is, which is super weird to me, but also not when I discussed it with my therapist, is it allowed me to literally start dancing again. Now, I'm definitely not where I was 10 years ago, but for a long time, I could not dance. One, because I had knee surgery and I'd gained weight and I didn't like the way that I looked. That's a topic for another day. But then when I lost it, and I also ended up going vegan for health reasons, and I love animals. Anyone who follows me on social media knows that. But it wasn't even just the body stuff. It was just finally letting it out. It was a relief. And it was like, this was a part of my life. This was my life. This was my identity for some time. But now I get to choose what part it has in my life now as an adult. Yeah, I'm glad that we finally started the conversation, and I'm glad so many people felt seen, and I'm glad so many people could benefit from the education that I have. The bad. So all I'm going to say is a lot of people, not as many as there were supporters, not at all as many as there were supporters, but some of the things that were said to me just cut so deep. Being told that I was sheltered and privileged, and that's why it was traumatic for me. knowing that there were so many other kids who very much identified with the exact same process and really struggling, even knowing all that, even with my education, everything, because it was coming from dance moms, and I spoke about this in my last commentary video on Sean Foyt, because it had come from people who watched me grow up, I can't help but take it seriously. So I have a lot of really well-meaning people in my life being like, you just got to forget about it. Like, don't let it impact you. And I'm like, okay, but what you're not understanding is you see these people as peers, whereas I see these people as elders still. And you cannot help but automatically take what people have to say seriously when your brain is primed to see them that way. And you are already conditioned to seek approval. And the things that were going on behind the scenes were so incredibly damaging. Like, it just adds another layer to it. So I'm still very much recovering from like the DARVO and the gaslighting. Like, that does a number on someone. But out of that, like, I do believe I had to go through that in order to get to where I am today. So basically what happened was it forced me to kind of figure out, first it forced me to see like who was in my life and I could trust. That was a huge thing. But for a while I didn't trust anybody, including my own best friend. And that just kind of served as like, wow, gaslighting wreaks havoc in someone's brain, especially people who already have trauma. So all that to say, I was not thinking properly. I was not trusting anybody. So I had to get off of the channel and walk away. But in doing that, I had to learn like, okay, Tiana, you've been really sick because of this, and it makes sense. Me just kind of having a chat to myself, totally normal, not weird at all. And just be like, okay, so you have gone back to the thinking process of 17-year-old Tiana. That's what happens when you're triggered, when you're gaslit, all that. And look how unwell you are. You don't want to be around anybody really anymore. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust anybody. You are sick. You can't eat. You're not sleeping well. You are getting illness after illness after illness, which is not uncommon for me, but it was excessive. Like, I had pneumonia for like a month and a half. This is impacting you in a really bad way. And I get why. We all know why. You get it. You know the trauma. You know the psychology of it. But let's go back 4 years ago and remember who you were after the third day stuff. You started to do an up, and that up kind of proves that when you trust yourself, when you go with your intuition, and when you stand on the principles and the integrity that you have, you flourish. You're not going to get everything right. You're not always going to say things in a way that people will understand. So when you do that, you are more compassionate to yourself. You're okay when you make mistakes. You get back up. You try again. You continue to improve and improve and improve. And when you do that, you help other people. But when you go with this, you're losing your mind and you don't want to talk to anybody. And I had a number of teenagers reach out to me. So I just completely went off everything. But after kind of having that conversation with myself, I just kind of did like you've got to figure out how to get back to 2020 Tiana. So, and that's why like it took a while. It took a really long time. It took talking to people in different communities of mine. It took a lot of therapy. So expensive. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't regret it. I don't, because it had way too much of an impact on other people's lives. I regret underestimating how many people were still, you know, part of it and under the control of the system. We'll say that. But I don't regret doing it at all because it helped too many people. And you know what, even in getting the backlash and all of that and being very unwell, like I had to learn in that to pick myself up and keep going as hard as it was. Like January and February, I was in a like very deep depression. My mindset was better a little bit, but I was still like, I couldn't concentrate. I wasn't doing well, but you know, I was still going. I was exhausted all the time. I was crying at everything, but I was still going. I was not going to stop. And I'm glad I did. I promised myself years ago that I was going to be the senior that I desperately needed. I think I said that couple of times in the videos. And that's not a jab at the seniors. No teenager or minor or child should ever feel like they have to protect other children. So it's not a jab at you guys if you were watching this. That's just the person I am. Like, I'm very much a protective person. And I couldn't not continue to show up as that version of myself, even though I have a very different perspective now. I always knew it was wrong. I always knew that it was damaging. I just didn't have the education or the knowledge to explain why. And now I do. And also being someone who just kind of like understands group behavior. Like I say constantly, social psychology is my favorite. Being someone who understands that kind of behavior and seeing it play out on not just like in families, in studios, in churches, but on a world stage now. Like Mango Mussolini, you don't get that by accident. That's enabled. That's, people have learned to just put up with personalities like that, and I can't stand it. So when I now know all of these things, and I care deeply still, like these kids and these moms are my family. That's how I see it. I spent more time with these people than I did my own relatives. So being someone who just genuinely cares and wants to make a difference in the world, no matter how small it is, like, I couldn't not say something. I think sitting with it, recovering from the retaliation, it kind of made me rethink the channel. I'm like, I can't just talk about sight. I wanted it to be just authentic. I wanted to be myself, because when I speak the most honestly when I am on camera right now, because there's nobody for me to read the expressions of. I'm speaking from a very grounded place, and it's just, I'm in my most comfortable environment. This is no pressure. This is truly what I am like when I feel safe. This is when I am my most authentic, because this is where I am comfortable. This is when I am confident, and this is when I have nobody around to worry about them judging me. So I wanted the channel and my social media presence to be a reflection of that, because those are the creators that I love. And so in all of that, the mess, the losing people, the smear campaigns, all of it, I wanted to change the channel to be an example. I had to learn how to be comfortable with growing on camera. And you know what? When you have self-compassion, when you can be like, you know what? You're not perfect, but keep going. You know, I find people like that make so much more of an impact, and I have so much more respect for than people who just dig their heels in the sand and are like, nope, I'm not wrong. And, you know, would rather project and gaslight and hurt other people. Because when you can just admit to yourself, like, yeah, I messed up, that's so much more impactful, because that's being an example. And that's like learning that there were so many teenagers watching too. I was like, there's so many unhealthy influencers out there who are influencing you guys to buy things and be certain ways and look certain ways. And it's like, just be you. All of that to say, defiant growth is what I had to learn how to do. You have to defy the parts of yourself that were conditioned into you, like the fear of retaliation from the studio. I got it, but you know what? I survived and I grew from it. So sometimes you have to be defiant, especially when it comes to trauma, in order to walk past it. You have to challenge yourself. Challenging myself and learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions and to sit with feeling like people hate me, even though that was not true. But what did I do to overcome that? I started talking to people. I had a conversation with my best friend's mom, who's like a second parent to me. And in doing that, I learned that one, my brain was not operating in a way that my perception was accurate. And two, being vulnerable and talking to people will help you overcome those fears. So I just want anyone watching this, whether you're in your 50s or you're 14 years old, like, don't be afraid to be yourself. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everyone's an asshole sometimes. Everyone has those moments, but you have to take it and you need to learn how to deal with it. I really wish I had, worded certain things in the videos a different way. I didn't like that in one of the videos I implied that people are not capable of changing. Because the fact is, neuroplasticity is how people change their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors. Under certain circumstances and under, certain group settings, it makes that harder. But I never want to imply that people aren't capable of changing, because I am. I did a down spiral back in the fall of last year. I lashed out at my family members because I was in a horrible place, because I had lost everything that I had built within myself. So, you know, all that to say, it sucks. It was a horrible moment and I have to take responsibility for it. But recognizing that was a huge wake-up call as well, to be like, what is going on that is making you so miserable and horrible to be around? It's because those wounds were reactivated. I didn't ask for them to be reactivated. But now that I know that, you got to deal with it. And so that's what I did. And it sucked. It was hard. But you know what? When you're honest and you're like, hey, I'm going through something, there are people in your life that want to be there for you. So anyway, I changed the channel to reflect where I am and where I hope to inspire other people to be. I'm also not gonna like pretend like Wicked didn't have a say in why I changed the name of my channel and the vibe. So if you care to find me to the western sky. Defying Gravity was a huge moment for me, watching that scene, because I was like, oh yeah, she's defying someone in a position of power. She's being her authentic self, and there are flying monkeys coming at her. That happened to me on a different kind of way, but like, yeah, people were coming out, they were lashing out at me. You know, I stood on my beliefs, on my values, on my intuition, and on my integrity. And that's not something I'm going to apologize for. Speaking up for the rights of children should not be a controversial thing. That is not a Tiana problem. I have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with people being mad. I have to be okay with smear campaigns. I have to be okay with flying monkeys. You know, it sucks, but I'm learning as I go. And learning and doing and being more comfortable in that is the kind of defiance we need in society right now. So, all that to say, a lot has happened. A lot has changed. A lot is still going on behind the scenes. Good grief. But you know what? We all have our moments. We all have our moments. We all get into ruts. We lash out. Sometimes it's a family member. Sometimes it's people you watched grow up. It's not okay, but you got to have that kind of patience and compassion in order to move forward. And that's just kind of where I'm at these days. And so I'm going to be diving into topics that maybe I wouldn't have gotten into had I not seen how dysfunctional it still is at the studio. Like, I want to talk about high control groups. I want to talk about abusive leadership, because it's so easy to just look at it in politics these days. I want to get into these things because it's too normal in society. And when you program children to be okay with this kind of behavior, those are the kind of people who are okay putting up with it in their workplaces, in their relationships, in their families. Sometimes they'll vote for the person who acts like that. So that's just kind of how I feel. But anyway, I hope I didn't ramble too much. I did. I know I did, but I tried not to. So welcome to the new channel. Not a rebrand, just a regrowth. I just want to help. I just want to be a voice. And I just want people to take the things that I have learned seriously, because it's so important to understand group dynamics. It's so important to understand abusive leadership. It's so important. So important. But yeah, with that, I'm going to close out the video and just say, please like, share, and subscribe. Share it on your social media. You know, share it on your stories. Do whatever you can. I need this to get out. You know, we gotta take back the globe. And I think that starts with questioning and looking back on the things we learned as kids and going, how are we recreating these cycles? How is this is this a positive for the world, or is this a negative for the world? Where did I first feel this way? How can I challenge it? That's what I want to discuss. So yeah, with that, I'll see you later.